We all know that real estate has created more millionaires than any other industry on the planet. We also know that it has created a lot of heartache due to mismanagement, overborrowing, and just simple life events that happen to all of us. Welcome to the Cash Flow Pro podcast. My name is Casey Brown, and I am your fearless leader. And although we might be bourbon sipping and at times foul-mouthed Southerners, we will always do our best to be honest, straightforward, and due diligent with all of the information we pass along to you. Welcome to the show. Hey there, and welcome to today's episode of Cash Flow Pro, your daily real estate investing podcast and YouTube channel. I am here today with Eric Upchurch of Active Duty Passive Income. And for the regular listeners, as you might very well be aware, we just had his business partner, Tim Kelly, on the show recently. And we learned a lot about Tim's personal story and how he got started and what he found in the real estate investing space. Today, we're going to talk with Eric. We're going to get a little bit more in depth about what they do, their team building strategies, and some other things that they've done to scale their real estate investing business past just the beginning stages. So you got the beginning look at what it took Tim to get into the business and how he did his first deal and so on and so forth. And today, again, we're going to kind of just move forward with that. So Eric, welcome to the show, brother. How are you today?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm glad to be here, and I'll definitely add some bang to whatever Tim had to say. So I appreciate being here, and I'll make sure to add some value to your
awesome, man. Well, we're certainly glad to have you. And as we told Tim when he was on the show, we first off want to start by thanking you all. I assume your past active duty service, based on I know you hadn't said that, and I don't even think we discussed that, but I'm assuming by the name of the company that applies to you as well. So we want to thank you for your service to this great country, because without you all, we would not be where we are today as far as defending our great land. And I told Tim, or as Tim and I discussed, it doesn't take but just a few seconds of watching basically any news channel to learn what the alternative options are, and I don't think any of them are quite as great as having people like you fight for our freedom. So thank you so much.
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, you can tell I've been out of the military for quite a while based on the wrinkles on my forehead. So
I always try to see by the haircut. That's usually the way I tell guys when people walk around here. I'm like, hey, do they have a flat top? Or
for those of you watching, this is long hair for me. For those of you watching this,
I got you, brother. Yeah. I got you. So, well, why don't you tell us before we dive into the inner workings of what you all have going on? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you came from and how you at least got started or discovered the real estate business?
Yeah, sure. So I served in 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment my whole time in service, 1st and 2nd Battalion, actually there in Fort Campbell.
Yep, right down the road.
I was down in I was in 3rd Battalion at Hunter Army Airfield in Savannah, Georgia. I had no idea what Special Operations was when I enlisted. I actually enlisted after college. Most people would be an officer after college. I chose to be enlisted because I'd been influencing younger people or just people that I've been working with from a very young age, working in the cornfields of Iowa. Always ended up as like the team leader or the manager of a retail store, whatever the heck position it was. I always ended up in that kind of like an influential type of role. I didn't choose that. That's just part of my personality. So didn't know what special operations was, but I knew that I needed to make it to my wedding on time. So I ended up trying really hard at basic training and advanced training. And because I ended up top of my class, I got selected for special operations.
Wow.
So spent my whole time in special operations and couldn't have asked for a better career. Deployed 6 times and just had a great time. Had some triumphs and some tragedies, of course, as well. But I fully believe that, and this is part of why active duty passive income exists now, is that our veterans and active duty service members should own as much soil as they swore to defend as possible, and that's what we're doing and have been for the last 5 years. So, I'm glad to be out, and I'm glad to be alive and doing what we're doing to serve our community.
Sure. Yeah. And I know, man, one thing that I've always felt, and I've seen it here, and I have a story that really just makes me absolutely fighting mad every time I think about it. Every time I think
Yeah.
about this scenario, it absolutely drives me crazy, but it drives home exactly what you're saying. And the story goes like this. There's a local car dealership. I'm obviously not going to give any names, but there's a local
Yeah.
car dealership who came out and their brand came out with this new type of sports car about
Mm-hmm.
7 or 8 years ago, right? And this 18-year-old kid just enlisted, had no idea, was making, I don't know, I don't know how much they make it as an E1, is E1, right?
Yeah,
How
not
much they
much.
make when they first start. And it's not a lot, but to him, it was a lot of money, right? And he
Mm-hmm.
was just barely qualified for enough to go buy this new sports car. And he had never had anything, he didn't have a car drive, whatever, right? So he went in there and they sold it on him, and he signed all the papers, and he walked out the front door, literally sat down in whatever vehicle he was getting ready to leave in, didn't even, it wasn't his new vehicle, and got right back out of it and walked back into the car dealership and said, "Hey guys, listen, I really just don't think I can afford this after I got out here. I really just don't think that this is, it's going to take all of my money to pay for this. And I want to see if there's any way we can just, can we just," and literally all the manager would have had to done is walk back there and shred I mean, they hadn't been uploaded, they hadn't been nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And don't you know, that car dealership took that car, parked it on the back row of the car dealership, and it sat there until the bank came and got it. And it makes me just want to spit nails mad, not just necessarily at that car dealership, but the very lack of financial education that some of these
Yeah.
kids are getting on the initial get go is just, it's like, it's almost as bad as what they're doing to some of the veterans, post war veterans, where they're just like, "Hey guys, thanks, see you."
Yeah, there's a reason there's a pawn shop and a car dealership and a cash advance place outside of every military installation, outside of every gate, right?
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, and a lot of guys, even guys in my squad, I managed 27 guys and had a lot of those scenarios. They come back home from a deployment and have $40,000 saved up, earned the hard way, right?
Yeah.
And they'd come to work the next week with a new Z06 Corvette with $1,000 car payment, and
And
they're
they're
young
40 grand
before.
gone on top of that.
Yeah, and their down payment was 20 grand, and there's still $1,000 at 17% interest rate. And
Yep.
part of that, the interesting part of that is as a non-commissioned officer, it's my job while in service to try and teach some of that, because I'm responsible for their financial decisions as well. That doesn't happen in the civilian sector where your boss is responsible for your decisions, but it does happen in the military. The problem with that is a lot of guys in the military, it's not their priority. Their priority is making sure that they don't get in a bar fight, that they make it home from combat, that they don't have whatever problem they have. It's not always that financial piece, and it's not the military's job to teach financial literacy, unfortunately. And they do. There are some little things, and we kind of talk about this in the book a little bit. But there are like little moments in time where you see a PowerPoint about something financial, like you need to invest in your TSP, like your 401k, right?
Yeah.
The military has one, and you need to just park it in here and just wait 20 years and you'll have $500,000 saved up or something. The problem with that is those briefs are always on the heels of a 4-day weekend, right after a safety brief, and it's just real tough to get somebody to focus or even care, especially an 18-year-old knucklehead who just got in the military, has never left their county, let alone state or country.
Yep.
Before joining the military, and whose household was stricken, like a lot of Americans, by financial stress.
Yep.
So thinking about their finances is not top of mind. It's war fighting, defending, training.
Yep.
So yeah, it's now our job. We feel like it's our job to teach military members what
Yeah,
to do.
and I'm glad to know that at least they are doing at least some type of brief on, hey
Trying.
guys, be
They're
careful here.
trying.
But the thing is, and what really upset me worse than anything was about the story I told there is it's almost like, because I've actually in the real estate sales business have, probably to the detriment of putting dinner on my kids' table as well, talk to people out of, like, I'm like, hey man, you're going to be here 18 months.
Yeah.
Why are you going to buy a house? There's not, and some people are like, just, I'm not paying rent, and it's like, there's only so much you can do to try to say, hey, be careful here. But there's also some people who are like, oh, really? Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. And the fact that there's funding fees and stuff like that go along with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, but nevertheless, enough about kind of those stories. I'd like to hear. I'm really interested in hearing about more about ADPI and the scale a bit, like where you all took that and kind of moved it forward after you and how you assembled your team. I know how you found Tim. Tim said it on the show. And I know we know some of that kind of stuff, but what were some of the maybe indicating factors that said, hey, Tim is our guy, or hey, Bob or Jim or Sarah or whoever? Those aren't real names of your team members, but I'm just saying, what made you find these, or how did you find these people in order to build your core team there to help you all get going?
Yeah, so as the co-founder of ADPI, Mark Yan, our CEO and the founder of the company, he and I were kind of just trying to figure it all out. I mean, truly a grassroots effort 5 years ago in 2017 when we started this, and started off as a 20-person Facebook group, just adding whoever friends and family we can, or friends and military spouses and
Sure.
things like that we could. And now we're 60,000 members and growing at 5 or 10% per month. And it grew from, so that's the community building part. And I'm leading into the fact that when I heard Tim or Adam or Jill or anyone on our team speak, there was a frequency that I heard. And when you're talking to somebody, we actually just did a networking webinar for our community because I was just speaking to 900 people at a real estate event last weekend in Denver. And you have to really recognize your strengths, but also what you're looking for in a team member. And then I hate to make it sound this way, but you have to have a feeling about a person that you're going to work with. So they have to fill a gap in your team, and they also have to be somebody you think you can work with. And some of that is just an innate sense. You got to trust your gut on, that person rubs me the wrong way. Like somebody's listening to this right now and go, Eric's full of it, I don't really resonate with him. That's fine, because not everyone's on the same frequency. Not everyone operates that way. Completely fine. Like somebody who you're just like, I can't stand that guy. Other people actually really like that person. So
right.
it just happens, right? And that's totally fine. So when you're looking to build a team, you first want to speak the same language. So in the military community, we all speak the same language.
Yep.
We also have an inherent trust. It doesn't have to stay. You don't have to trust somebody, but at least there's that initial, like, man, this guy went through some of the same stuff that I did. And then you do speak the same language. You have that frequency, that vibe with somebody, and then you just figure out whether or not they can fill a gap in what you're trying to accomplish. And that's what we needed at the time. We needed more people who are passionate about, projecting out financial literacy to the military community. We found that in Tim, we found that in Adam, Mark, and Jill, the whole team. And now it just kind of started listening to our community and then providing that feedback to our community.
Sure. Man, that's awesome. I mean, you said you started with 20 people and now you got 50 something thousand. Is that right?
60. Yeah, we just hit 60,000 as of today, I think, or yesterday.
Wow, man, that's great.
But we've got 2,000 people waiting to get in at all times. So we've got a full-time staff in the community just trying to keep up with requests, which is fantastic, a great problem to have. And it's a reflection of the hard work that was put into the community, just listening, providing that feedback, and making sure that we can grow organically. So Yeah, and it's a private group, so only military. I mean, every single one of those 60,000 people was had to answer questions. We had to verify they were military, so you can. I'm kind of laughing because that's 5 years of work, and now we're projecting to be at 100,000 by the end of the year. So
Yeah.
it's
And
crazy.
then, that's, I don't even know how many active duty military is there right now? Do you have that figure right off, or did you
A
just?
couple million.
Okay.
So our community is our constituents are active or prior service, so veterans also.
Okay. So
Active
veterans
duty,
also. Yeah.
yeah, active duty passive income is a play on words, right, for real estate
Got you.
investing,
Yeah.
active passive. But
Yep.
but there's about 20 million people who in the U.S. who have served. So 20
Okay.
million is
So
the target.
yeah. And the thing is, and man, I can't even begin to tell you how many past duty people I've had on my podcast alone. Like, it just,
Mhm.
this whole systematic way of doing real estate, whether it's office space, whether it's multifamily,
Mhm.
whether it's self storage, whether it's parking lots, whether it's sign funds, ATM fund,
Yeah.
whatever. You can go on through the whole list of what of the different things that we all syndicate or know
Yeah.
as raising capital and funding, whatever. And the systematic approach that all of those things take in place or taken and put into play is the common thread that really like runs right through the way the military does things. And it's all boom, 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 and A leads to B leads to C, and so on. And it's just really opened my eyes into where the military can get post military wealth or post military uh, cash freedom, or whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And because a lot of the guys like yourself that serve in, like, just for instance, the 160th, make pretty good money. And when I say pretty good money, it's really good money, actually. And especially now, again, I'm speaking a little bit out of turn here, because I know there was some considerable benefits to being deployed and then coming back and then being deployed again. Like, you got first, second, third deployment bonuses and so on. So when we're not at wartime, I guess that pay could be substantially less. I don't really know,
Well,
but what I'm getting
yeah,
at is
our unit never came home. So we're still deploying every single month, whether the regular
every
army
month.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I
we're.
know there's still some guys here that leave.
Oh yeah.
I've sold some houses, and the guy's like, "Hey, we're leaving next month. We'll
Special
be gone."
operations
But they
is
don't.
never coming home. And it's not just Iraq and Afghanistan. We're in many theaters of operation around the world all the time. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I'll tell you, anytime you have a few beers with some of those guys, especially guys with clearance, man, it's awful. Even the stuff they can talk about, I don't even want to know what they can't talk about,
Yeah, yeah,
because I'm just like, it's just really eye opening.
yeah.
But nevertheless, the money, taking that money and placing it in passive income investments,
Mhm.
is probably the wisest thing that anybody that joins that higher pay grade military life could do for themselves. Because, and especially with, like, just off investments, like if you're off flying helicopters in Afghanistan or wherever, your money's here making money, and it just seems like it just goes together. And I'm sure that you all are kind of every day figuring out how to tweak that and make that even a little bit more appealing, so that you can gather more people and spread your message.
Of course, yeah. That's so you want one thing with syndication. We can talk about syndication if you want. There's a couple exemptions that we try to fall under when we syndicate multifamily or storage or mobile home parks, which we do all of those. And one of the things for military community is, as a restriction of barrier to entry, is we don't typically have $50,000, which is usually the minimum for a lot of these syndications, including some of mine
Yeah.
on the private side. And then we'll also, military members are typically not accredited investors, which if first time. I'm sure it's not the first time your audience is hearing that, but are you making $200,000 a year for the last 2 years and projected in the future, or $1 million net worth? If not, which most military members are not, you're kind of limited to what you can invest in passively, to some extent.
Very limited.
Yeah, so there's a 506B, Reg D 506B, which allows up to 35 non-accredited sophisticated investors, but 35. I have a community of 60,000. So how do we serve 60,000? So the next best thing for us was to create a Reg A fund, Regulation A. Instead of a Regulation D, it's a Reg A, which a Reg A plus allows us to raise up to 75 million. And we can advertise as much as we want, which is a restriction for a 506B. And our members do not have to be accredited. And we set the threshold at a $500 minimum. So they don't have to have 50,000. They can now invest, instead of buying that Corvette at 17% interest rate, they can take $500 a month and put it into a fund that's investing in real estate. And so
what are the drawbacks to that? Why wouldn't everybody go Reg A versus Reg D 506C or B?
Yeah. The biggest drawback to an operator like us is cost. It is about $100,000 and about a year of your time to set up, because you're instead of falling under an exemption, you're now getting pre-authorization by the SEC, from the SEC. So in a regular exemption, a Reg D, you just follow the rules, and the SEC kind of stays out of your business unless something goes wrong down the line. But in a Reg A, you directly communicate with the SEC and say, we'd like you to approve this fund. I'm using loose terms here, but you're getting pre-approval from the SEC. Then you have to provide very regular and transparent financials, and every social media post has to get pre-approved. I mean, the emails you send out have to get pre-approved. So for an operator, it's a massive headache. But for a user, it breaks that barrier. That's what our company does, is constantly breaking down barriers. We wanted better loans provided than USAAs and Navy Feds out there in the world. So we created our own mortgage company that does it better.
What about because I know one of the, you hit on the $50,000 minimum. Give or take. Yeah. And there's some out there. I've seen some out there that are 25. I think I'm not even 100% sure I haven't seen a 10. But the reason why, at least for my calculations, most are 50 is cost of administrative costs, right? Yeah. So when you have a $50,000 investor, the cut that the syndicator takes or gets or whatever or earns, at the end of the day, 50,000 is kind of where that becomes profitable, I guess, if you will. 25, depending on how smooth everything runs and how it goes, that can still be profitable, not quite as much. But with getting somebody that invests 500, the administrative costs, obviously you get a 1% in, 1% out. So you're getting $50 in, or you're getting, you're not even that. What, $5? Or what I'm thinking, 1% in, 1% out, you're getting $10 in and out. How do you mitigate some of those other expenses, or what brings that expense?
Yeah, we also don't charge any management fees. A lot of Reg A's, there are big Reg A's that everyone knows of, big capital funds that everyone out there knows of. If you're paying attention to social media and some of the big names out there that are providing,
I know I'm about 98% sure.
Yeah. And those are providing like 4% returns sometimes. And they
who we're pointing at. I know who you're talking
about. And that's okay, because that person, that entity understands their institutional investor needs a place to park their money. They're not going to do it for $500 for a military member who sweat for that money, right? It's 4% return for an institutional investor, for a family office or a huge institution who has a lot of money. 4% is like a safe place to put your money, and then you get the tax offset also. You're going to get a K1 which applies to any Reg A. You provide your investors with a K1 that shows a paper loss. So a lot of those bigger funds will have high management fees, and their investors don't care. And the returns will be a lot less, and their investors don't really care, and because they want that paper loss, and that's totally fine. Different model than what we're doing. We're truly just trying to do what's right for our community, and we know there's a huge demand, and people have they've been asking us for 4 years now, how do we invest with the ADPI team? We see you guys are buying commercial multifamily storage mobile home parks all across the US. How do we invest with you? And we didn't have a solution. In fact, we also don't allow solicitation in our group. So we weren't even actively marketing, to our community. And people were like, oh, you must be raising tons of money in your community. Zero. We were raising zero from our community up until this Reg A goes through. So, yeah.
Well, and that's so, yeah, and that definitely pulls the curtain back a little bit on what and I'm glad that you brought up the fact that you all are doing Reg A, because we don't have a lot of Reg A talk on my podcast. It kind of gets overlooked because most of us are after the exemptions.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
That Reg D provides.
Yeah, it is a really tough thing, and the SEC really scrutinizes
What you described there sounds almost like an IPO process.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Casey Brown, host of the Cash Flow Pro podcast and YouTube channel. Have you been thinking about investing in real estate but just don't know where to begin? I'd like to help by inviting you to check out our website at www.3000capital.com. There you will find an array of material that will help you learn all about real estate syndication. And while you're there, be sure to check out our free video series download titled 5 Must-Know Keys to Success in Passive Real Estate Investing. I'd also like to personally thank you for making Cash Flow Pro part of your day. Now, back to the show.
As far as like, if somebody comes up with a new whatever and they want to sell stock in this whatever company, going through the IPO process is like, man, I've heard people say they'd rather get a root canal with no anesthesia or no but then do that. It just seems like it's a headache. But so how many funds do you all have open right now?
So this one is not, we're not authorized to raise capital in it yet. We do have soft commitments, which the SEC wants us to call pre-registrations now. But until it's been 9 months of work every single week, trying to get it to this point where we're really close. So as of right now, this is Equity Fund 1, and it is not open yet. But we know we're getting
it's coming.
Oh yeah, it's coming. Absolutely, yeah.
Awesome. That's great. So how many? What does your assets under management look like right now?
I've invested as a general partner in around close to 2,000 units. I'm a limited partner also. I invest passively in my own deals. I invest passively in other people's deals. I couldn't do that 4 years ago, but now I'm at a point where, I can and I do. And
well, it's same principle. Take what you're making on the GP side, invest it in some LP stuff.
I'm also the KP on my deals, so I'll sign on the loan. I believe in my deals. I'm going to invest in my deals, and my wife looks at me the same way. Like, are you going to provide great returns for your mom, my dad, everyone, your uncle who's investing in this deal? If you are, then we want that money too. So why wouldn't you invest in it?
You nailed one of the terms that we talked about with Tim, and I want to get a little bit of your take on this because it's a hang up for a lot of newer syndicators, right? But you mentioned KP, which is key principal. There's several AKAs for that. Key principal,
guarantor, sponsor.
I don't need. Key sponsor and so on. But before you had the ability to be a KP, what did you do in order to find your first KP?
Yeah.
Or did you have the ability to be a
partner?
KP?
No, I did not. When I left the military, I was not making much money and just had a W-2. So didn't have a high net worth and was just trying to get started. So what I did was I paid for a coaching program. Now I'm speaking to hundreds of people on that same stage for the coaching program I signed up for 4 years ago. So that gave me the community I needed. Now we have the ADPI community as well, which I get to go and explain my resources and my knowledge to that community. But yeah, having a community, you can buy into a community. And if you're doing that, if you're going to buy a coaching program, man, you got to know that you're committed. The people who complain about coaching programs are the ones who don't put in the work. You look at Michael Phelps, he can hire a bunch of coaches. If he doesn't do the work, he's not winning gold medals. So if you want to get into a community, find one you think is reputable, pay into it, save up your money and just pay into it. But dedicate yourself to 5 years of grind before you start complaining. Grind.
That's right. That's exactly right. Grind every day. Get to it, figure it out, think about it, learn what your best course of action is, and go.
And you'll know what your best course of action is based on, like, you'll gravitate towards things. I like to network. I like to go out for due diligence and like I'll set a meeting with the mayor of every town we buy in. And I'll say, hey, I got a gift for you. I don't care if I'm talking to the administrative assistant. I will get through to the person who's going to be able to set that meeting with me. So it's important for people to understand what they're good at. And the only way you're going to know what you're good at is if you're going to go out there and actually, put your best foot forward and talk to people and network and try to make something different in your life. Because if you want to change, it means something you're doing right now is not working. So go out there and put in that work.
That's right. And when I joined my mastermind, man, it's like everything, all of a sudden people in the business took me serious. People that I had been trying to book a call with for many months, trying to just talk to and learn and even to get an appointment with somebody about like us gathering money and investing in their deal. Like, you're like, oh, I'm not going to waste time talking to that guy. But as soon as I referenced Hunter Thompson, I said, hey, Hunter's a friend of mine. I'm in his mastermind. And they're like, oh, we got time for you now. And I was like, it's what I thought. So no, it definitely shortens that curve, or it shortens that distance between point A and point B of learning. But anyhow, so listen, we're kind of running out of time here. But Eric, I want to thank you for your time. I know you all are super busy, especially with everything you've got going on and trying to get your new fund launched and the what you have under management just as of right now. But I want to thank you for your time. But we have a couple of questions we ask every guest that comes on the show. And the first of those questions is, what is the best book that you have recently read or are
other than
reading?
Military House Hacking by Active Duty Passive Income? Which is
we'll give that a plug
actually,
anyway.
Yes, it's a #1 bestseller on Amazon, but it's free download on our website. You can get the whole book for free. So rereading Traction right now, which is
man, there's a lot of people rereading that right now. It's like all of a sudden
that's how the world works, right?
Yeah. And actually that's something that it's next or two down on my list next. I can't remember, but yeah, it's I'm going to read it.
Military folks what
was your
systems,
biggest
and putting systems in place and cutting the fat is really an important thing for our business, and just I think for anybody's business. That's why the book has been so successful. Just really deep diving on accountability and making sure your business is running as a business.
Yep. Good deal. All right. What is a dream vacation that you've either taken or hope to take?
We actually, sounds like a weird vacation, but maybe a vacation for a military guy. I got to unplug for the first time in probably a dozen years, completely unplug, other than on top of a peak where I got to post a Facebook message or something. But we just hiked 170 miles around the Tahoe Rim Trail. I got 12 real estate investors together, and we raised $190,000 for Veterans Community Project, which will build about 6 homes for homeless veterans. So it was a vacation to me because, man, pushing my body and my mind is like, I'm just drawn to it. And that was 20 miles a day, 16 hours a day on our feet with 40 pounds on our back, no bathrooms, no campsites, no running water. You had to, lakes and streams and just camping out in nature with the bears and mountain lions and everything. And we did it for a great cause. So it was an adventure.
Man, that's awesome.
And we changed a lot of veterans' lives, I think.
Sure. All right. I was getting ready to ask that same last question again. How can the listeners reach out and get in touch with you if they heard something that resonated with them today, or they'd like to learn more about ADPI? Yep. How can they reach out and get in touch with you?
I'm on Instagram at real Eric Upchurch. I don't know if there's any fake Eric Upchurches out there, but maybe. At real Eric Upchurch, or
it might be after you get,
or you can also email me, eric@activedutypassiveincome.com.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you again so much for your time, for being with us today. And listeners, as always, please head down and leave us a review and make sure it's 5 stars. Please make sure you leave us a 5-star review and also write a review. And while you're there, please smash that subscribe button so that you can be notified as we release new episodes and new content. And we are thankful that you've been with us today, and we hope you learned something. Eric, thanks for the value that you brought to our audience, and I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of the day.
Cashflow Pro is hosted by Casey Brown, founder and CEO of 3000 Capital, a commercial real estate investment firm committed to providing its investors with ongoing cash flow and helping them build long-term wealth. If you enjoyed today's podcast, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll be notified about all our future episodes. You can find more information about us and our investment philosophy by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks for listening.